everyone. No doubt you will be very familiar with those scenes just now, after many years of visiting and attending here in Myross Wood. Well, I'm just about to head up to the main house, and you're all very welcome to come along. Might be a bit of a sentimental journey, now that Myross Wood, as we knew it, is no more, so yes, it's the end of an era, and I'm sure we will all miss it. If you don't mind, I will be making a few stops along the way to recall some events of times past, and even times not so long past. And I'm hoping this little presentation will coincide with some of your own memories of Myross Wood. And the final part of our journey will be to capture part of the last Mass celebrated here in the chapel in Myross Wood on the morning of the 15th of August 2020. So let's begin our little trip down memory lane. Okay, this is our first port of call, and of historical significance too. That raised area you see to the right was part of the original entrance road up to 1962, while the road I'm driving on now was just part of the forest back then. But let's go to the original entrance on the Lip Road. So for nearly 200 years, this was the original entry point to the Myross Wood estate. Inside the beautiful wrought iron gates, and to the left, was the gatekeeper's cottage, which I believe was in use up to the late 60s. The entrance roadway passed high over a stream 30 to 40 metres below, part of which became a cause for concern in the late 50s, early 60s, as a result of subsidence problems. So a decision was made, for safety reasons, to abandon this entrance entirely. And so began the construction of the present entrance and a new link road. And here all credit to the local community, who came together and completed the entire task voluntarily. With the old section of the road now closed, it did mean the end of what was a short but interesting route that took in a rather famous tunnel. The well-known local historian, the late Pat Cleary, wrote, "The old main entrance to Myross Wood was constructed sometime between 1810 and 1842, and necessitated cutting through solid rock and constructing what is known as the tunnel. In all probability, this major undertaking was carried out by the Earl of Kingston. The story goes that he asked his steward at the time, 'Will this gold sovereign cover the cost of cutting out a piece of rock of its own size?' Well, he got a positive response, and the tunnel was built. Not too long ago, Jeremy Gainey brought me on a trip along this unique section of road to experience firsthand that now historic journey. Together we just managed to negotiate our way through overgrown trees, briars and undergrowth. Along the way we did meet that famous tunnel. It still stands there as proudly as ever, and will no doubt for many more years. Okay, so onwards travel again to the main house, and the road continues to wind its way through what was once a beautiful forest drive, with tall mature trees lining the road almost up to the house itself. Alas, in the winter of 2017, October the 16th to be exact, Storm Ophelia paid the country a visit and left a lot of damage in its wake. For whatever reason, large sections of Myross Wood were in the path of the storm, and those areas understandably suffered more than most, while other areas close by were completely unaffected. Then, because of the density of the tree population, the unavoidable domino effect resulted in the toppling of many more trees, the final damage being quite devastating. In the end, when morning broke, hundreds of trees were strewn in most every direction, including a 400-year-old and much admired Myross giant. But while the main access road was closed for a short spell, the big clean-up was organised and got underway in a very short time. Some of the damage can still be seen along the water's edge, where fallen trees proved just too difficult to retrieve. The resultant landscape is now very different to what it was, but we have been left with some truly spectacular panoramic views until, that is, the trees return again. Quite apart from the Townsend family involvement in Myross Wood, which stretched back 4 generations, the Townsend name has long been associated with other distinguished residences in West Cork and beyond, dating back indeed to the middle of the 17th century when Colonel Richard Townsend first came to Ireland in 1647 and started the family dynasty. In this immediate area, the Townsend name has been associated with residences like Glandore House, Shorecliff House, Kilfinnan Castle, Riviera Lodge, Coppinger's Court, Derry House, Seafield House, Shepperton Park, Castle Townsend Castle, and many more. Richard Tower Townsend, as the eldest son, was always destined to inherit Myross Wood, and he did so on the death of his father, John Hancock Townsend, in 1889. When Richard decided in 1895 to re-enlist in the army, he gave the running of Myross Wood estate to his younger brother William. Sadly, Richard's military career was cut short, and he died in 1899 while undergoing medical treatment in England. He was aged 45. So Myross Wood estate then passed to William Tower Townsend, and he would be the last of the Townsend family to own the estate. William had been appointed a Justice of the Peace in 1883. He also pursued a career as a land agent and lived and managed both Derry House in Rosscarbery and Myross Wood estate at the time of his brother's death. On the 28th of February 1901, at the age of 46, William married Geraldine Curzon, and they began their married life in Derry House, but moved to Myross Wood when Derry House was sold in 1915. The family would live at Myross Wood until after the First World War, when they left for England about 1920, chiefly because of Mrs. Townsend's asthmatic condition. From that time on, the family came to Myross only on summer holidays. William Tower retained the ownership of Myross estate until he died on the 6th of February 1943. His wife, Geraldine Emily, predeceased him and died on the 17th of May 1940. Because there was no male heir to the estate when William Tower died, the property had to be sold and was put on the market in 1944. The successful bidder was a local man, Timothy Cleary, who bought the estate for £2,000. Timothy farmed the lands for 2 years, and in 1946, having retained 90 acres, accepted a bid of $4,200 for the property from the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. Thus began the tenure of the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart in Myross Wood. There were 3 daughters and a son born to the marriage of William Tower and Geraldine Emily: Blanche in 1901, Alfred in 1903, Marjorie in 1905, and Evelyn in 1910. Blanche, the firstborn, was the only member of the family to marry, and she died on the 13th of February 1981 and is buried in England. Alfred, the only son, survived just 7 days and died on the 8th of July 1903 and is buried in Whitechurch Cemetery, Brad. Marjorie, the second daughter, spent a lot of time in Ireland and eventually became an Irish citizen. She was the only one of her family living in the main house when the estate was sold to Timothy Cleary in 1944 and was still in residence in 1946 when it was sold to the MSC. With extensive renovations about to get underway to prepare for the incoming MSc students, Marjorie agreed to vacate Myross and moved to Ardagh Cottage on the estate. Marjorie continued to live in Ardagh Cottage until her death on the 25th of September 1983. She is also buried in Whitechurch, Brad. In 1986, Ardagh Cottage and some hillside property was sold by the MSc, and the new owners restored and extended the property. Evelyn, the youngest daughter, died in England on the 9th of September 1993 and is also buried in Whitechurch, Brad. On a sad note, Timothy Cleary would contract Weil's disease not long after selling Myross in 1946, and he died on the 8th of October 1947, aged 46 years. When Myross Wood Estate was sold by the Earl of Kingston in 1826, it contained approximately 300 acres of mixed farmland, including gardens, pastures, and of course beautiful woodland, and roughly 100 acres of leased lands. When the MSC bought the estate in 1946, there were still approximately 300 acres, again mostly woodland, but with a substantial amount of arable land too. Down through the years of their ownership, the MSC maintained a working farm and kept cattle also, and many of the priests and students of the order played their part in the running and managing of the business. Today, but for the grounds in the immediate vicinity of the main house, most, if not all, of the arable land is leasehold, and up to August 2020, a minimum staff helped maintain the grounds and gardens. For many years, the late Father Brendan Hanley was deeply involved and a guiding hand in helping to maintain the gardens of the estate and his beloved grotto. Never one to shirk a challenge, he would regularly be seen in his gardening finery, weeding and planting and planning his next gardening task. His final project was to be the design and the creation and the building of the Reconciliation Garden in 2016. A blending of flowers, trees and shrubs combined with a beautifully designed gravel pathway, affording an opportunity to stroll and relax and take time out with one's thoughts in the tranquility of the setting. It was indeed a credit to Brendan's commitment and dedication, and will be remembered as such. Sadly, circumstances dictated that he would not see his project reach full maturity before he became too ill to continue. Sadly also that the passage of time has since taken its toll on this once beautiful project, and understandably on the grounds, gardens and the grotto too. We are now in January 2021, and we wait, with some degree of optimism, to see what's next in store for this beautiful estate. It's always so easy to be impressed by the house and grounds of Myross Wood as one drives through. And the beautiful front lawn too, of course. Every time I see the lawn, I think of the second Sunday in August each year for the annual garden fete. All the grounds around the house were just perfect for such an event, and as always, it was a great time for family and friends, and visitors too, as long as the day remained fine. Many of the events, where possible, were held outdoors, and varied from step dancing to choral singing, dog shows to llamas, and miniature ponies to Cheltenham Gold Cup winners, and bouncy castles to pottery making, and lots in between. Tea and refreshments, as always, were in plentiful supply, and it seemed most everyone took a break to have that cuppa and a cake. The fete itself goes back over 20 years and was organised by the Friends of Myross Wood under the guiding hand of the house leader. The fete, as always, requires lots of preparation and organising to facilitate the various guest events and performers. But everyone pulled together to make sure it all worked out, and it did, and helped raise much needed funds for the upkeep of the house. In the early years, as well as the garden fete, the Friends were also involved in the running of an annual raffle, with different teams of volunteers travelling to all the big towns around selling tickets. And delighted to report that the Friends were always well received by the people of West Cork. A testament surely to the esteem people had for the MSC and Myross Wood. Later, flag days would eventually take over from the ticket format, and the teams still continued their fundraising as before. The team leaders at each venue deserve many thanks for their efforts over the years in organising volunteers to man the tables throughout the day. The names of those who gave of their time are just too numerous to mention, but you might just recognise some of the faces in the following photo sequence of garden fetes through the years. The motto of the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart is, "May the Sacred Heart of Jesus be loved everywhere." MSc students beginning their novitiate year in Myross Wood in 1947 would undoubtedly have been familiar with the life of their founder, Father Jules Chevalier. Jules Chevalier was born on the 15th of March 1824 in Richelieu, France. As a young seminarian in 1848, his heart was deeply touched by a conference on the Sacred Heart. He was ordained a priest in 1851 and became curate in 1854 and later parish priest in the parish of Isidun, about 200 kilometres to the south of Paris. Father Chevalier would live all of his life in central France, and over 50 years of it in the small parish of Isidun. He died there on the 21st of October 1907. On December the 8th, 1854, Jules Chevalier gathered a small group of like-minded priests and formed the MSc congregation under the protection of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. In 1876, a young Irish priest, John Mary Neenan, from the Diocese of Clyne, was the first Irish priest to express a desire to establish a house of the MSc Society in Ireland. However, it would be his friend Michael Tierney who would pioneer the foundation of the MSc in 1909 at Western Road, Cork. The story of the MSc in West Cork actually began in 1944 with the purchase of Glandore House, and coincidentally this house was at one time the residence of a branch of the Townsend family. When Myross Wood came on the market in 1946, the training of MSc students was underway in Glandore House. Having viewed the property, Father Toomey had the foresight and the initiative to see the potential in Myross Wood, and having negotiated the sale, had the contract signed on the 23rd of May 1946. Father Warren was given the task of renovating the house, and the records show that he had it fit for habitation in September 1947, and had the very first Mass celebrated there the same month. Father Warren would later become the first house leader of Myross Wood. So on the 31st of September 1947, the MSCs bade farewell to Glandore House to begin their new mission in Myross Wood, and Fathers Warren, Byrne, Gouffet, Kern and Cohen, accompanied by 4 newly professed and 3 novices, set out on the journey to their new Sacred Heart College in Lepe. Over the following decades, many students would negotiate the long winding road to the main residence in Myross Wood to begin a new life in the service of others and follow on the footsteps of their founder, Father Jules Chevalier. In 1946 also, the Daughters of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, a sister order of the MSc, were looking for suitable premises in the locality, and it was to prove opportune that Glandore House would become their new home. Hence the name changed to Glandore Convent. While Myross Wood House would continue its role in the preparation of young men for the religious life, around 1970 it would embrace a more community-centred role, offering retreats and courses to lay and religious, as well as providing daily and weekly masses and the annual novena to the Sacred Heart. This service would continue right up to the 15th of August 2020, when the final Mass was celebrated in the chapel by the last house leader, Father Michael Kern, assisted by Father Dan O'Brien, whilst the MSc Deputy Provincial, Father John Fitzgerald, delivered the homily. Let us recall some of the priests who passed through Myross Wood as part of their life's journey. For some, their stay here may have been short. For others, Myross Wood may have played a big part in their lives. And then sadly for some, it was to be their final journey. Students spending their formative days in Myross Wood eventually progressed to the next stage along their religious pathway, and the taking of vows as well as personal and theological development was pursued in various other colleges around the world, before finally realizing their lifelong ambition and their calling to be ordained a priest. Now, while Myross Wood may not have been the alma mater for all the MSCs, I'm sure those that did pass through will hopefully have retained many happy memories of their time here in West Cork. Indeed, many of the priests we associate with Myross Wood may well have spent their formative years in other colleges in Ireland and beyond, but for whatever reason found themselves at some stage in their lives back here in Myross Wood. And as always, we were honoured to have them spend time with us.
growing us and making us into, building us into His church, into His community, and blessing us in so many ways through listening to His word and open to the Holy Spirit and open to our divine Lord, and through Mary's intercession also, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, leading us to know and to love Him with our hearts. We acknowledge that our sins, and our failings and our human failings, it's all God's work really, isn't it? Our lives, it's all God's work. And our response, our saying yes, like Mary did, before we don't always say yes. We maybe struggle with Him at times in our journey.
So anyway, I think this morning somebody said yesterday, God, in a time of transition, ER in a time of transition, and I thought that person kind of doesn't, it's kind of a nice word, alright, transition, but in fact for us here today in Myross Wood, for yourselves, for ourselves, for this one and that one and everyone who is who's part of Myross Wood, or maybe Myross Wood is part of them, it is more than transition. We are crossing a threshold today, and threshold is different to being transition. If your husband brought you over the threshold when you got married, or you brought him over the threshold, depending on his condition, when you got married, like there's kind of the idea is that there isn't a turning back, but there isn't the end of life either with a threshold. I was thinking, I went down to the pier last night there for a bit, as I often did, and I was thinking like, what is this like? And it reminded me of a chair my father brought at home long ago. We had a new house at the time when I was a small child, and he brought this big chair, and in the back of a little pickup truck. And my mother said, like, what are we doing with that? He said, we're going to sit on the chair, he said. It is a chair for sitting on. And it's a massive chair. So anyway, they got it in the house, but after a few days, it was my mother's chair in the kitchen. And I could sit with her. I was only small, and she was probably small as well at the time. And we could sit together in the big chair. So that lasted a few years. And it was kind of our chair. It was getting fairly wrecked and ruined as well. But then there was a new threshold then when my brother was born, and the chair was taken to another little room where he was being kept, and his basket was put on that chair. So like I was ousted, you understand? I'm not small-minded about it, but anyway. So he had that chair for
Hello, now I am Michael Curran, the last one of the MSc community to leave Myross Wood. Dan O'Brien and I were the last two in the house for the last few weeks before the closure of the house. And Dan set off to Cork to his new abode there in the Western Road in Cork. And then I packed my bags and came down here to the parish house, the parochial house, Lip, where Father Terry O'Brien is parish priest, is also missionary of the Sacred Heart. So we would share the house here together. We would share the ministry here in the parish of Lip and Glandore. So I came away from the house on about the 17th of August, and it was I was the last one in that sense out of the house. And we didn't have any solemn closure of the house as we would have liked, because of the year we're living in, the year of COVID-19, and that made it impossible for us to have such a gathering of people in Myross Wood as we planned to have it in the lawn or something like that, an open air mass and some refreshments for a big crowd of people. But it became impossible to organise that, and we regretfully had to abandon it. So I asked Father John Fitzgerald to come down from Cork. He's the Deputy Provincial, and John came down for the final mass we had on the 15th of August. And it was a great addition to us to have him present. He gave a very nice homily on the occasion about closure of the house. And I would like to commend him for preparing for the leaving as well, by taking an active part in the safeguarding of the house when it is empty, and for the contacts he's making with people, and still going on with people around West Cork and anybody interested in taking over the house and bringing into it an area of service that would continue in a way the service we've been giving over the years here to the people of West Cork as a local community, business that was really loved by the local people and enhanced in so many ways the communities round about here in the villages of Lep and Glandore and Skibbereen and so on, and people coming from long distances. So I would just like to commend Father John Fitzgerald for all he's doing to make it possible for the house to be used. Please God, it might be down in the years to come by some local initiative having to do with some area of service that we were involved in ourselves here, the quality of life, the I suppose areas of service and ministry to people, to the life-giving services to the people that came to us for retreats and so on. So the closure of the house was a sad occasion for us all. The people were deeply touched by their relationship to Myross Wood. People of all kinds coming from all kinds of places, and we had all kinds of activities going on there. Recreational events, serious studies events, courses, and so on. And the people had a great love. And every day we met for many years now. We had mass every day, every morning, and we celebrated the liturgy for all the intentions of the people. And we had many occasions then throughout the course of the year to celebrate our faith and our love for the Lord and our love for one another. So people were deeply touched by it, and for many years it was, of course, a formation house for the young religious that were being prepared here for our mission throughout the world. And then it became a house dedicated to retreats for the religious, mostly coming from around the country, and summer retreats and courses of one kind or another for the local diocese here in Cork and Ross. And eventually then it became a house dedicated more to the local people, and they responded with great interest and great involvement in the running of our Myross Wood, the Friends of Myross Wood, and many people who took part in our faith, in our novenas, in the meetings we had for people, the elderly people, all kinds of healing activities and so on, all kinds of courses going on there over the years, the local people themselves. So my good wishes and thanks to everybody, and it was a great joy to me. I've been working in the house for about 12 years, I suppose now, and involved with all the things that happened there for these 12 years. I'm moving on now to continue my contact with the people of West Cork here in Lepley's Garden. I hope they'll be happy years for me and for all of us who will meet here, continue to meet here in this lovely community here. So thank God for all these blessings and good wishes to you all.